let's get this party started. Hello, welcome everyone to the November 10th webinar on ArcWeb. My name is Stu Paterson. I'm a technical sales engineer here at Symetrix, and we're going to talk about, obviously, ArcWeb, what it is, how you can use it, and just how fantastic of a control device or option it really is. So, first and foremost, ArcWeb. It's a virtual interface for all Symetrix DSPs. It's available on all of our DSPs, as in when you purchase whether it's a Radius NX, a Prism, or Solus, you have these available to you by default. And how you access them is typical. You would just set up your network. Typically, of course, you can have access to wireless devices, your smart device, tablets, iPhones, anything with a browser, as long as they're part of the network that the DSP is on. So if you have, like, let's just say an iPhone, you'd use Safari to type in the web, that devices or that DSP's IP address, the known IP address, to open up the ArcWeb. And you can use this for control of presets, volume, mute, source selection, and other things that you wish to provide. It's a very simple, easy GUI for the end user. It's not overly complex. It's meant for locations where they don't necessarily need a complicated screen or a complicated design screen. They just need to get in there, get things done, and then get it over with. Okay, and as I stated, ArcWeb is included with Composer at no additional cost, literally for free. Installation is simple, and other than connecting everything to an access point, no additional hardware is required. Literally just the DSP and a connected device, computer, tablet, smartphone, etc. And as I said before, any browser, Chrome, Edge, Safari, doesn't matter. It's all HTML based. You just enter in the IP address. Whoops. All right. But I want to get into the meat and potatoes of it. So let me go ahead and talk about this. And let's get right to it. Okay, you should be able to see my screen now. I'm showing Composer. And right now, I am within our remote control manager to show you basic setup. But before we do that, let's go ahead and jump to what it actually looks like online. So I've already connected to the device using the IP address, as you can see up here. My device is an Edge with a couple of accessory cards. And that was literally, and I can go ahead and show you that again to see how easy it is. 192.168.100.54, and that's it. There's no sign-in necessary. Now, as you can see on this page, I have 4 instances of ArcWeb and an instance for a Voip Dialer and an ATI dialer, which we'll get to a little bit later. But let's just concentrate on the ArcWeb instances first. So as I stated previously, you can have up to 4 instances of ArcWeb for each DSP. And each can be assigned unique privileges, as in you can password protect certain ones. For instance, let's just say the ArcWeb 1, which is this guy, you only want the manager to have access to. You can assign a password, a username and password for this instance. And the other ones you can leave open. It's up to you. They are individually assignable with user privileges. And each ArcWeb instance is programmable with up to 24 menus, and each menu may contain up to 16 items. All right. So for a good example here, I set up the first ArcWeb instance, just a basic sources menu. So, and I can cycle through what I have already programmed, and I'll show you what it's actually doing in the programming. So again, I set just something simple here. Here's my source selector that I have programmed, and each time I select, obviously it's going to affect that change, that source. And what I did is I programmed this slider. This little slider right here is what's doing the actual source selection. So you would normally, what you do if you want to assign a source to a Arc Web, you would right click, set up to remote control, and then you would select which instance you would want to assign that to. As you can see, you have the 4 available, and previously I've selected it for the first one, but I'm going to go ahead and add it to the second one as well, because why not? Okay, then we open up Remote Control Manager. Now, Remote Control Manager is available through the Tools menu, and then going down here to Remote Control Manager, or you can just do Control M, which I did. Now, Arc Webs are not enabled by default. You have to enable them in order to make them function. So when you open up, let me go ahead and open a blank site file for you. Okay, locate the device. And let's just do this. So you would need to double click, and then there's a selection here where you can Arc Web enable selection right here. So enable it, save, and now because it is bolded or emboldened now, it is available to use. And the same thing with the dialers. In this case, this unit that I am located has a telephone and ATI card. But in order to get that dialer to actually work, I need to come in here and enable that dialer, okay? And as you can see, now it's bolded, which means it's available, and I would use this to program. But let's go back to my previous site file. So in any case, again, adding controls to an Arc Web is very, very easy. For example, let's just say, for instance, you want, there's a manager that requires volume control for a telephone input, or whatever input that it could be. It doesn't really matter. You would just right click on the parameter you want to add to the Arc Web, set up to remote control. Again, select the Arc. I'm going to go ahead and select one I haven't added any menus to. So Arc Web, the instance number 3, and then hit OK. Now, I was online, and you'll notice that I am now currently offline. Anytime that you add a parameter and it requires a controller ID, which this one did, it'll knock you offline. That's normal. Generally speaking, if it doesn't add, or it's not necessary to add a controller ID, it won't knock you offline and you can continue programming. In any case, let's go back to Remote Control Manager and let's go to Arc Web 3. And now I have that gain as an option, but it hasn't been programmed yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit program. Wait for it. Okay. And then double check here. Let's go home. And that was instance number 3. So go to instance 3 and there it is. It is now available for me. We want to see it in action to kind of prove that it actually works. We can go online. Skip confirmation, I don't need that. All right, let's go back to our control. Let's turn that buddy down. And as you can see, we have direct control. Now, you'll notice there is a little bit of visual lag, but that is only visual. It's not representative of what actually happens. All control increments are instantaneous audible, as in once you make that selection, the audio will in fact go down 3 dB. It's just visually, it'll take a minute to catch up because audio is top priority. The visual representation is a lower priority, just to make sure that, that control actually functions the way it should. All right, and that's pretty darn easy. But what else can we do? Well, not only volumes, of course, we can also do buttons. In this case, we can go ahead and let's do a mute button for that same control. Set up the remote control. Again, we have to select the arc or web that was previously selected for the volume, which was number 3. And let's go OK. And now let's go back and program. You see it was added in my list to the left. It has the gain 1 and mute 1 under arc web 3. And go back. Now, once you've programmed, you do need to refresh the page or else it will not show up. It doesn't automatically refresh. So let's go ahead and refresh, Control R, and there you have it. And there's our mute for that parameter. That was very simple. Now, I showed you sources because, as I said, we had instance 1 was source, and you can choose any source that you want via that fader that I programmed. But we also have the ability to add presets. So we have a preset trigger. So this will recall presets as you scroll through the list. And I set it up to where you need to press enter in order to activate, but you can disable that function to where just by scrolling to the preset, it will engage. Generally speaking, I don't like to do that, but everybody has their own choice. So let's go back here, but you do need to enable this function. So going here, you'll notice once it's been enabled, obviously up here, I've done that previously, you have to physically add a preset menu, which means once you open up, let me do that one more time just to show you. Okay, so let's just say I want to add a, let's go all the way to number 4. We haven't done anything with number 4 yet. So instance number 4, we're going to add a preset menu. So as you can see, there's no menus currently. Let's go ahead and add a preset menu and label it sources, because that's what we want. And here are our items. So right now we just have the 4 presets that I have. And then you can select what you want the actual name to be on the arc. So you can say recall preset number 1 or whatever you want, or just do it. Because why not? Because we're gonna have some fun here. All right. So now we've added that menu, that preset menu. And all of them are separate. So if I wanted to add a second preset menu, and this one is more, I don't know, distribution, why not? Not that it matters, but you get my point. And then I go ahead and save it. And in this case, I would have different presets. I'm not going to bother here for this example. But now we have 2 preset menus that we can individually select. So let's go ahead and save it, program. Okay. All right, let's go back to our browser, which in this case, if I haven't mentioned it, this is Edge Chromium, in fact. So let's go ahead, refresh, go home, and then go to ArcWeb 4. So there we go. So now I have the 2, and here you can see my do it preset. Distribution I did not do, but it's the same presets, but you get the idea. You can trigger presets with the ArcWeb. And just because I feel that maybe one of these, let's just say this source right here needs to be protected with a some sort of form of security. So let's go to ArcWeb instance number 1 up here, double click, and let's enable security. Username you can select, just because on my purpose, I'm just going to call it admin, and I think you can guess what the password is going to be. It's going to be password. Okay, and then we have the ability to automatically log off when inactive for a certain amount of minutes. So I'm just going to go ahead and do 1 minute because why not? All right, program that bad boy. Okay. Okay, it already refreshed. So Let's go ahead and go home to show you. All right, so instance number 2 didn't have security. I'm able to click on it and have direct control. But if I click on number 1, it requires me to enter my username and password for access. No, I do not want to save. Thank you very much. All right, just like that. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you can assign each instance with different credentials. You don't have to have the same credentials for each one. They can be different. It can be user 1, user 27, admin, manager, doesn't matter. It's all assignable to how you want to control it. Okay. Now, moving on, let's see, you can also do some editing. So as I showed you previously, you can name this whatever you want. So this description here is just named ArcWeb, but we can, for a number 4, but we can go ahead and change this to manager if we want, or anything of that nature, manager, staff, who knows. I'm just vamping at this point. And then go ahead and program it, and it will appear and change in your ArcWeb. Okay, programming complete. Let's go home. And there you have it. It's now titled Manager Staff. So it just makes it for easier recognition by the staff or whoever needs to use this. So they don't have to think to themselves, okay, ArcWeb instance number 1, 2, 3, or 4. No, you can name it, and that's easy. All right, another thing you can do is, let's go back to sources. So now you have different choices here. Earlier I mentioned that I had mine set up to where it will not accept the value until you hit the enter button, which is, this is how you select that option right here. Generally speaking, for presets, I have that disengaged, or engaged, I should say. But for like sources, I have this generally unselected. So it just goes directly to that source. But we can also have the option of, obviously, with wraparound menu values with highest or lowest value reaches, which just simply means it will continue to scroll on the ArcWeb. So right now, let's go here. Let's go to the sources. Oh, of course. Hold on, let me get rid of the, 1 second. Disable security so I can do this more easily. All right, so we're back. All right, so here are the sources, but as you can see, I can continue to scroll right back to the beginning by pressing up. Now, to prevent that, you would just select, or deselect, I should say, the wraparound menu values, and then reprogram, save menu, save arc, program. There you go. And now refresh. Now, when we get to the top or the bottom of the list, it will stop and not wrap around. Simple, okay? Another thing you can do is you can limit what is actually being displayed. And you also have a click value. Now this is, typically this isn't really useful for sources, but this is more useful for like a volume control. So you can set the high limit or low limit, which just simply means how far or how high of a volume can they actually control to before it stops, or the same thing with low limit. So you can limit it to, say, like the minimum they can drop the volume is -30 dB and the maximum is +3. You can do that here, as well as an initial value when the unit is engaged. So you can also check the resolution per click. You can set it as usually as high as you want or as low as you want. Generally, the default is pretty adequate. If I remember correctly, this corresponds to a 3 dB selection. I'll have to check that. Okay, so save that. And the same with preset. Oh, the other thing I forgot with sources, let's go back to the actual ARC. So we can change how things are presented, as in we can change the order that they are in. So we can change the order. Let's put 4, we call preset 4 on top of number 2. So in that, it will go in that order. Obviously, if you had these named, that would make more sense, but you do have that option. The same with the sources. Down here, we can change the order. So instead of 7, we can change the TV to be between zones 3 and 4 instead of between Pandora and satellite, or as you can see. Okay. All right. Now, let's move on to other things. So I want to move on to the Voip Dialer, or just the ARC Web Dialers for our Voip and the ATI cards. So same thing, you need to have these cards installed. Let's go back up a little bit. So on this edge, I have both the Voip and the telephone card, the ATI card installed. And here are their controls, the typical controls that you can export to a control screen. However, you do have some control of them via the ARC Web. And if I open that up, go home, we'll start with the Voip Dialer. So here you have an overview. So let's shrink this a little bit. All right. So this is pretty much everything. So, but if I minimize this, you'll notice that it'll split off into different categories, or this is useful for a smartphone or anything with a vertical screen. So it's very, very handy. It's very user-friendly depending on what screen orientation you use. But for this example, I'll go ahead and split out and show everything at once. So you have each line dialer. So each line has its 2 appearances each. You have access to the dialing, all of the controls, of course, the speed dialer, as well as line 2, appearance 1 and 2. Now down below, these are additional controls that you need to assign. So if this were default, it would not have the presets or the line 1 volume and mutes down below. I needed to add that. So how you add that is go back to Remote Control Manager, again, Control M, go to your Voip dialer or whatever you're using, and then double click. You'll notice that only the top line, the volume 1, line 1, is bolded. That's the only one enabled. So I'm going to go ahead and enable the mute on that. We're just going to keep everything consistent. So let's see. No, I don't want remote control number 2. Let's see here. Oops. Nope, that didn't work out the way I wanted it to. Let's call it 10. There we go. All right, program. Okay, and then go back. And there's our mute, which we can add a different label to that if we so desire. But the other cool thing is you can do it individually. So you can limit how much control or give them maximum control with the volumes and mutes for each line and appearance. The other cool thing is preset recall. So it's effectively the same thing as you saw in the ARC Web, where you have the preset menu and you can recall any preset you want. It's the same thing. So you can do that via the dialer directly here. Instead of going to the other ARC Web instances, you can do so within the ARC Web dialer, the Voip dialer, I should say. Now, it doesn't have to be the same as the other presets. They can be whatever you want. They can be presets to, for example, my presets were based on the auto mixer here for the inputs, for different input values for whatever purposes that you would require. So let's do this, bring it down. Are we online? We are not online. Wait for it. Okay, we're online. So let's go ahead to, and down below it, as I said previously, when you have it in a vertical orientation, it separates into different menus. So here's our separate volume for line 1. Here's our line 2 dialer and our contacts. On the far right is our preset menu. So I can go ahead and recall our presets. And as you can see, they're affecting the volumes and the functionality and the settings of the gain sharing audio mixer for whatever purpose that you want it to. This is just a good example of what you can do and within the dialer itself. Okay, and again, it's the exact same thing with the ATI or the telephone dialer. So it gives you much the same controllability. You'll notice that you don't have a lot of the other controls that a Voip dialer would have. Well, that's normal. And you have the speed dials, access, and the line 2 dialer. I don't have a preset menu engaged, so let's go ahead and do that real quick. Let's go over here. Let's go, and here's our ATI dialer. Go to the preset menu, which you can see is disabled. Go here, just enable it, and these are already by default 4 presets just to get you started. You can add or subtract as necessary. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but you can. I just went with the default 4 presets for ease of use. Go ahead and save and program. Okay, go back, and there you have it. There's our presets now within the ATI dialer. Okay, and that is all. So, of course, our ARC web gives you that controllability. You also have access with the same IP address. You have access to other pages that aren't typically, they can be useful, like you have our access to our diagnostics page here that gives you a lot of valuable information. It's the same information as in the diagnostics module that we have within Composer itself with a little extra. Or you can actually do, there's meters as well. So you can have someone go over here and they can see audio being passed. You can see the different cards I have installed and they can tell, and they have some amount of control to it, like, and they can mute, but that's effectively it. So they can just mute or see that there's actually audio being passed. And the same thing with Dante. So you have the 64 by 64 Dante, but the bulk of it is focused on the ARC web instances. Okay, there we go. All right. Well, again, I wanted to thank everybody for watching this webinar, and I hope I've made things very clear. If not, you can go ahead and give us a call at 425-778-7728, extension 5 for tech support, or you can visit our website at www.symetrix.co, and you can do a search. I'm sorry, or available on the website afterwards. I don't understand the question, Taylor. Oh, you mean this webinar, will it be available on the website? Is that what you mean? Oh, okay, yes, it will be. We edit them for content and any flubs that I may do, but it will be available on the website. It generally takes about a week, 2 weeks to do the editing. No, we don't actually do the emailing, but it will be available online for everyone. But generally speaking, it'll be about 1 to 2 weeks for the editing purposes. Okay. And if that's it, I'd like to close this webinar. I thank everyone again for watching, and take care of yourself, and happy holidays.